Well, hello, Miss Viv. How are you?
I'm great, and apparently I'm a bit crazy because I know I talk to animals. How about you?
Oh, well, depends who I talk to.
Mm.
To be honest, like I was actually, there was one time a few years ago when a post of mine went viral where I was, having the audacity to talk to a dead horse, and the post went viral and people were like wishing me dead and saying to me that I was absolutely nuts and I belong in the I should basically be locked up. Some people said I was a waste of air. I should have never been born. I mean, I was amazed how many people had a point of view about talking to animals because I thought we were living in modern times, and and I was apparently wrong. We were living in the medieval times, and I was now the witch that was going to be burned at the stake.
Which is completely, I mean, it is absolutely flabbergasting that here we are in the 21st century. It's like, hang on a second, what's true and real for you, because this is the thing of, well, what is true and real for you? What is
Mhm.
true and real for each and every one of you that's watching this? Are we crazy because we consider we can talk not just to animals, but using telepathic communication and talking to your house or your car or whatever it is? I mean, I talk to everything. I always have since I was a little tacker. So,
Yeah.
does that make me crazy? Sure, if that's what people think. Does it make me weird? Probably. But, it's what's true for you. It's
Mhm.
not what if there was no judgment about what you're aware of and what you're perceiving or what you're hearing, the whispers of the animal kingdom or of the earth or of people's bodies or of future possibilities. So, does that
Totally.
make us crazy?
In some people's view, But what was actually interesting too, and what you're saying, Viv, is so valuable. You just being yourself and you really knowing what's true and real for you is such a gift because the one thing was, like, I was supposed to have a Facebook Live where I was going to talk to this dead horse, and I knew that a lot of people were going to try and get on and vilify me from the moment that I was speaking. And so I asked Gary Douglas, the founder of Access Consciousness, like, what do I do with this? And he said, just speak for what is true for you. Like, don't try to convince anyone. And I'm not that type anyway. I don't try to convince you of anything. Like if you have a question, I'm more than happy to talk to anybody about anything, really. Um, but at the same time, I'm not going to try and convince anyone that I'm right or whatever, like, hey. But the funny thing was, I had also asked some people to come on so that I wouldn't be drowned by all those people that were basically hating me and wanted me dead. Um, but the interesting thing was when I started talking and I just started talking about, how animal communication was something that was real to me since I was a kid, like you were saying, Viv, really talking to things from a very early age and not really knowing what I was doing, but yet knowing that something was real and true for me with that. And then, just at the very end of the hour, I tapped into that horse and said some things. And nobody could really hold on to their anger. It was so interesting. People were trying to even share it. Like I saw it later, some people were like, "Oh, look, the crazy bitch is on." And then like the next people that were watching it were like, "Oh, that thing you just said about the horse walking back, that was cool." Like, and I was like, "Oh, it's interesting." So people couldn't really hold on to all that.
Mm.
And but so why am I even talking about this? I don't know. It just came up with this whole crazy conversation. But what I'm realizing is it doesn't really matter how crazy people think you are, as long as you know that you're not crazy, And that's, I think, the important part is not to buy into other people's points of view.
Yeah, and look, you brought up some great points too. That there's so many pieces of popcorn that go off in my head with conversations. Whether it's the same for you with me, it's because we're willing to be different. Because we're not bothered by judgment. We're not worried about what people think of us. So there is an element of you really have to have your own back, because if you imagine, quote unquote, that you hear an animal talking to you, or you hear something other than a person communicating to you, in the old days, they would have locked you up, they would have medicated you, they would have tied you to the stake, but the difference that we be these days is what opens the door for other people to have their difference. So you saying that about the comments on the post on the Facebook Live, it's just, oh, actually, what you just said about that horse, you've just put a light bulb in somebody's world. You've just changed the trajectory of where they were going. And so, with animals, they just be them. They communicate all the time to us. And they're like, oh, great, I've got someone that listens to me. Or, oh, okay, how else do I get this person's attention? But if we think that we're imagining it, or that we're going crazy, or we're nuts, what are we missing? What are we missing? The animals are actually opening the door to us,
Totally. Yeah.
They're inviting us.
No, so true. Yeah, sorry.
Oh, good. It's like, oh, this is such a great topic. But yeah,
I know.
It's the willingness to be different. And I think that for a lot of people is terrifying. It's terrifying. It's exciting in one respect, because it gives us, oh, I can relax, I can be me. And most people have that when they're on their own. But how do you actually flex that muscle and embody that and be that more with everything and in the world, that you have this information available to you, and have that difference, and just have that sense of relaxation and peace and ease, knowing what's true for you, even if it doesn't match what other people think or say is right or wrong, to have your back in a way that you know that you're perceiving information, that you're sensing things, however it comes for you, then you're not crazy. And what capacity could be opening up for you? What capacities do you have that may not match anybody else's reality?
Yeah. Oh, so true, so true. And I have to say too, like I'm actually really grateful for some things that have shown up in the last 10 years that really weren't there before. Well, I didn't see them before, but for example, this this lady named Anna Breitenbach from South Africa, and she's a pretty well-known now animal communicator. But she was actually, she spiked someone's curiosity who was like a filmmaker, and the person who was following her around was actually skeptical and didn't believe in animal communication and thought this was all bullshit. And, she wasn't for real. She was making this up. But they followed her. And so she ended up at this rescue place where they had just gotten actually a black panther. And that animal was just unhappy, and he was just pacing, and he wasn't leaving his little hutch, and he was just unhappy. And so, they had called her to get her help. And so she connected to him and basically found out that, first of all, he didn't like his name. His name was Diablo. And they were like, oh, that, he didn't like that. And then also he was concerned about there had been some other animals that he had living with before, and he was actually wondering where they were and what was going on for them. And then the other thing that he didn't know was why he was even there. Like, where am I and what am I supposed to be doing here? And so she explained to him that, hey, look, this is your new home and you can stay here and this is your space. And, and so all of this was just a conversation, right? Well, the animal's behavior changed instantly after that conversation, and he started going outside. He started displaying himself. He started like laying around on the outside, completely relaxed. And, so the guy who was running this place, who also was skeptical and didn't think that this was possible to talk to animals, his jaw literally dropped to the ground, and he was in tears for gratitude because he was trying so hard to get this animal to relax, and what I really love about that is that this really made it into, if you watch it now, first of all, she is famous now because of this, but if you look it up on YouTube and you basically put in Black Tiger Diablo, you will find the story. And, and what this really, like, you and I, Viv, we have seen stories like that ad infinitum. Honestly, like, I have seen so many animals change after we do some clearings and we talk to them and we actually explain something to them, or we give them some options, or we show them what is actually going on, or whatever, I mean, I know we all have these stories, but I am grateful that it made it out there, because that to me was just like such a relief to see that, here it is on film, and it's undeniable. It's like you watch that and you're like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. So
and yeah, and it is. I remember when I first watched it, to see this Black Panther hitting and attacking the cage and growling, and at the people on one side of the screen, to the change, the transformation, it is absolutely undeniable. And Diablo means devil. So, here's this Black Panther and its name's Devil. So, a little tool for you guys at home watching. If you have an animal, ask you whatever name you've given to your animal, ask them if they're happy with that name. What projection is that, calling this Black Panther the devil? Mm-hmm. What do you think that's going to create, and just, did they change the Panther's name, did you say, Susie?
Yeah, I think they called him Spirit afterwards.
That's right. Yeah. So, and just that shift, just that energetic shift of being willing to perceive the difference, and, her willingness to be different and to look cookie and to not have a point of view about people, knowing that they're skeptical or judgmental of her, and just going, what, this is between the animal and I'm not here to prove anything, but let's just see what's possible.
Yeah.
And I think, again, the animal kingdom invites us to so much of that space where there is no proving, there's no competition, there's none of the stuff that us two-legged things do. Animals have a very different way of being. Have you noticed how the majority of the time they are at peace, they are relaxed, they're just totally comfortable being them, and being around animals that have that space to be them, regardless of, he was in a cage and in a sanctuary, wasn't he? So he still managed to find a sense of peace, even if he was in captivity. There was still a shift. And the genuine care that the caretaker had for this animal, they're not being cruel, trying to keep this animal in a cage or in a compound. He genuinely wanted the best for this animal, and he was willing to probably go up against a lot of his own reservations and his own points of view, and shit, totally. What are people going to think of me as a caretaker? What are they? Look at the change that created, and the real effect that that's created across the entire planet with the people that have watched that video.
Oh, totally. Yeah. And he actually, it changed his life, because he started to also recognize, because she was basically saying to him, look, you probably are talking to animals, but you just don't really get it, and I think that's really true for so many of us. We actually have that sense, but we haven't really identified it as a conversation. We're just thinking, oh, we're making this up, but that's actually the brilliance of the tools here, also with Access Consciousness. I have to say, because I have taken quite a few not talk to the animals, but animal communication classes from different people, and I never was really good at it. But what I realized when I came to Access was that my way of communicating and receiving energy was just so different than what they were basically prescribing as the way that you should be talking to animals. And even Gary Douglas says, hey, look, animals talk in pictures. Well, they don't for me. And so, I was like, oh God, am I wrong again? But I realized, by using the tools that, oh no, I'm just different, and I perceive energy in a different way than other people do. And now I've met so many people that say, oh, I don't get pictures either, but I get very clearly certain things that are coming very, very clearly, but it's just not in pictures or a movie, it just doesn't. But anyway, it doesn't matter how. That's what I'm trying to say. Please, you don't have to come to a conclusion about what this looks like, but really more to just recognize you are perceiving energy no matter who you are, because when something is off, that. Call it intuition, whatever you want, but you do get a sense of that. And if you start building on that, that's the basis of animal communication and communicating with energy, period. So
Yeah, and I have to say, similar thing, Susie. You know, I'd read books and taken courses because if you have the desire, if you have the curiosity, or wonder if you can talk to animals, please know you can. So, you know, that's a great starting point to acknowledge. And this is the thing I love about particularly the tools of Talk to the Animals, of they are practical, pragmatic tools that you learn on day one of how to communicate with animals and your unique way. And that takes me back to what I was saying earlier about the difference that we be. We all perceive energy differently. We all perceive, you know, that intuitive gut feeling or the conversation in your head. We hear it, we feel it, we sense it. We all have different ways of perceiving that. And the first class in the Talk to the Animals series is Start the Conversation, because it's very much about, okay, how do I start the conversation with my animal? How do they communicate with me? How do I communicate with them? And so, you know, for me, it was a fast track to actually acknowledge what you're already doing and being, and also sharpen and fine tune and be comfortable with the tools and the skills that you actually have. So I love that about, I'm biased, you know, I love that about the practical side of the tools of how to communicate, because you find your own, it's such a personal journey, it's such a transformative journey for you as the carer of the animal, of the owner of the animal, because you discover parts and pieces of you that you may not even know that you have. And for me, it's like, what more of that can I have?
Totally.
It's a whole new kingdom. There's a whole new way to function and be in every interaction of your life. And the animals are, you know, they're just lying there around looking at you, and it's like, when you're ready, the door's open. So if you have any kind of curiosity, check out Talk to the Animals.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yay.
Thank you, Susie.
Yeah, thank you, Viv. And
My
this is
crazy
just,
friend.
yeah, exactly. Crazy. And you know what? For all of you that are possibly watching and want to watch more, tomorrow at the same time, we're going to be back here again, talking about basically, you know, can you do it right? Can you be right about how you take care of your animals? And of course, you all are going to say yes, and that's what we're going to talk about tomorrow. And Viv and I have many more to come. So these are like short conversations about what all is possible with animal communication. So please tune back in, and we're looking forward to having you.
Only if you're crazy, though.
Yeah, only if you're crazy. Exactly. Just, you know, acknowledge that first.
Yes. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Susie.
Thank you. Thank you, Viv.
Bye.
Bye.